People in many towns across Kenya are protesting. Major cities like Nairobi, Mombasa, Kisumu, and Eldoret have seen large crowds taking to the streets. These protests are happening in towns all over the country, showing just how widespread the opposition to the bill is. So, how has the government reacted to all this? President William Ruto and other government officials have defended the bill. They say it's necessary to raise money for important projects and services that will benefit the country in the long run. The government believes that these new taxes will help reduce the budget deficit and promote economic growth. Parliament has been debating the bill, with some members supporting it and others opposing it. There's a lot of disagreement, even among politicians, about whether this bill is the right move for Kenya. Some lawmakers are pushing for the government to listen to the protesters and consider their concerns. The protests have caught the attention of people across Africa and around the world. Many are watching closely to see how the situation unfolds. In other African countries, people are expressing solidarity with the Kenyan protesters, understanding their struggle with rising costs and economic challenges. Internationally, media outlets are reporting on the protests, and human rights organizations are calling for peaceful resolutions and dialogue between the government and the protesters. In summary, the protests against the financial bill in Kenya are widespread, with many towns participating. The government defends the bill, but there is significant opposition both on the streets and in Parliament. People across Africa and the world are paying close attention to what's happening in Kenya, hoping for a peaceful and fair outcome. We'll continue to follow this story and bring you more updates. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more news.
Kenya Finance Bill Protests Explained. The Kenya Finance Bill protests have their roots in the 2023 anti-government demonstrations following the passage of the Kenya Finance Bill 2023. These protests, led by former Prime Minister Raila Odinga, resulted in 6 deaths and numerous injuries. The 2024 protests began on social media platforms like TikTok and X, formerly Twitter, after the publication of the Finance Bill 2024. On June 18, 2024, the protests transitioned to physical demonstrations, primarily driven by a young demographic and human rights activists. By June 20th, the protests had spread nationwide, with police responding forcefully. The 2024 Finance Bill is part of a broader medium-term revenue strategy, MTRS, developed by the Kenyan government in 2023. This strategy aims to increase the tax-to-GDP ratio from 13.5% to at least 20% between 2024 and 2027. Some of the key proposals in the Finance Bill 2024 include an annual circulation tax for motor vehicles and revised excise duties on petroleum products. Following their initial success, the protests have evolved to demand greater accountability and reform from the government, citing widespread corruption and inefficiency. Implications of the proposed bill: privacy concerns. Amendment to the Kenya Data Protection Act of 2019, allowing the Kenya Revenue Authority, KRA, to access financial information such as mobile money statements without court orders. Cost of living. Introduction of an eco-levy on environmentally harmful imported products. Tax changes on items like bread, sugarcane transport, locally assembled mobile phones, electric bikes, and batteries, introducing a 16% VAT, increased excise duty on alcoholic beverages and cigarettes by up to 40%, new excise duties on vegetable oils, coal, and increased road maintenance levy. Other tax measures. Introduction of a 2.5% motor vehicle tax. Extension of the Kenya Revenue Authority's decision period from 60 to 90 days. Introduction of a minimum top-up tax on multinational groups. Withholding tax on payments for goods supplied to public entities. Withholding tax on interest from infrastructure bonds and digital marketplace sales. Change in tax status for fertilizers, pesticides, and fungicides, affecting manufacturers' VAT claims. Casualties and abductions. The protests have seen significant casualties, with over 10 confirmed deaths and numerous injuries. Both protesters and police have been injured, and there have been reports of abductions and extrajudicial killings by the police. On June 20th, 2 protesters were killed and around 200 were injured. Journalists and observers were also harmed, and 1 police officer lost both forearms due to a tear gas canister accident. The Independent Policing Oversight Authority, IPOA, is investigating the fatal police shootings during the protests. On June 25th, protesters stormed the parliament in Nairobi, leading to the deaths of 19 people shot by the police, with additional fatalities in other cities. International reactions to Kenya finance. Bill protests. International Monetary Fund, IMF. The Finance Bill 2024 was largely influenced by the IMF's demands, sparking intense backlash during the protests. IMF's communications director, Julie Kozak, apologized for the resulting violence, but emphasized the necessity of austerity measures and policy changes for Kenya's economic stability. Celebrities. International celebrities have shown support for the protests. Jamaican dancehall artist Conscience waved a Kenyan flag during his performance at the 2024 Summer Jam Festival in Germany. Additionally, the soccer community on X, formerly Twitter, rallied behind the protesters, amplifying the hashtag #JoshRejectFinance Bill 2024. Bobi Wine. On June 23rd, Ugandan opposition leader and activist Bobi Wine voiced his support for the Kenyan protesters on X, encouraging the youth and expressing solidarity. Anonymous. The hacker group Anonymous threatened cyber attacks on President Ruto and Kenyan parliamentarians, demanding the bill's cancellation. Religious figures. During a Holy Mass on June 23rd, members of Youth Serving Christ, YSC, called the Finance Bill 2024 an enemy to Kenyans and urged prayers for its rejection. Opposition politicians. On June 24th, the Azimio Coalition Party, led by Opiyo Wandayi, unanimously rejected the Finance Bill 2024 and requested their members in Parliament to withdraw any submitted amendments. However, Raila Odinga faced accusations of using the protests for personal gain. Julius Malema. On June 24th, South Africa's economic freedom fighters, led by Julius Malema, expressed solidarity with the Kenyan protesters, condemning the exploitative legislation. Gideon Moi. Kenyan politician Gideon Moi condemned the arrests and abductions of protest leaders, calling the government's tactics unacceptable. Human rights organizations. On June 25th, UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres urged restraint from Kenya's police and security forces.
Are you looking for entertaining and educational content to watch? Subscribe to our YouTube channel today for a variety of interesting videos on topics you love. Join our growing community and never miss out on new uploads. Hit the subscribe button now. Discover new ways to learn and be entertained by subscribing to our YouTube channel. Engage with like-minded viewers and stay updated on our latest videos. Don't miss out, click the subscribe button and be part of our exciting YouTube community.